Welcome back to the Mega Meeple, the show all about gamers and the games that bring them together. I'm your host, Thom, and I want to thank you for hitting that download button. Now, if you like what you hear, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And while you're there, leave us some kind words and put out some of that 5-star loving, okay? We'd really appreciate that. And I promise I'll call you in the morning. Now, if you have any ideas or suggestions of what you want to hear about, or maybe a topic, a discussion about the board games, now you can contact us through our website. It's www.themegameeple.com, and go to our social media page. All the links to our pages like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. You know all the ones. Okay, it can be found there at our social media page. And now you can also hear the podcast on our YouTube channel, as well as some unboxing videos, as boring as they are, but evidently unboxing videos is a thing, so I do them, oh well. And you can also see some reviews of games and gaming accessories, and the link to that is also on our social media page on the website. Alrighty, welcome to the Mega Meeple. This is episode 7, lucky number 7. And we'll see how lucky it is. I know recently it's been unlucky. Recently in the news. Now I don't cover news that much because I figured, there are other people doing that. Dice Tower News is doing it. You go to a lot of these other places to get your nightly news of the gaming community and what's going on. But I do want to touch on one thing that happened this past week. Took me by surprise. It shocked me, considering how much buzz it's been getting in the gaming community and in the news. It surprised a lot of other people too. And that is, this past week it was announced that Geek Chic is no longer in operations. They're going out of business. There was no reasons given why. In fact, it said that they are currently limited in our ability to respond to all the questions. Yeah, that took me by surprise because I was kind of looking forward to ordering a Geek Chic table. I mentioned before that I'm in the process of moving, and I was going to wait until after I moved to find out exactly how much space I had available in the dining room. And then at that point, I was going to pull the trigger and contact Geek Chic and get in queue for the gaming table. Well, too little, too late. I guess that's not going to happen, at least not with Geek Chic. Now, I don't know if Geek Chic was the first ones that do this or did this, or if it was just the first company that I personally have heard of. I remember back when I started getting into board games, I remember watching a lot of the Dice Tower videos, and I noticed that the table that they had was a Geek Chic table. So that was the first time I've heard of them. But I think since then there have been other companies that have popped up that do woodworking and gaming tables / dining tables and coffee tables and stuff like that. Now, I'm going to take this from two approaches, both what is good and what is bad about this news. Now, obviously, the good news is that a lot of these other companies that have sprouted up since Geek Chic that makes gaming tables, I'm sure they're going to see an upswing in their orders. Because a lot of people that would order something from Geek Chic would now have to go to these other companies. I think the bad thing, as far as from the perspective of the gaming table companies, is that I think a lot of people, even though they'll go have an upswing in business, I think a lot of people are going to be a lot more hesitant to pull the trigger before they plop down that deposit. Because a lot of these companies, they offer, they require at least a $600 and sometimes up to a $1,400 or $1,500 deposit. And I know as a consumer, when it comes time to get a gaming table, that's going to be an additional concern of mine. And when I talk to these companies, it's like the number one thing I'm going to ask them is, what if you guys go out of business? What if you guys go the way of Geek Chic? And that's another thing I'm thinking. Is all the people who were in the queue from Geek Chic to get their table done, they'd already plopped down their deposit. Are they going to get their money back? At this time, I have not heard what the status of that was. So I'm gonna, before I do the deposit, I'm gonna need some assurance of what happens if the company goes south, and they have my deposit money. Do they have something in place to refund that money to me? And if they do, I'm going to require it in writing. And then obviously the downside with Geek Chic is those all the people there that's no longer with a job. They have to look for another job now. I'm not sure what the market is for woodworking or people of that experience, but my thoughts go out to those people, and I wish them the best of luck of finding other employment elsewhere. Yeah, so some of these other gaming table companies may see increase in business, and we actually here in the Carolinas we have the benefit of having a company here in the Carolinas that make gaming tables, and I don't know, I might reach out to them to see what they think about this whole thing and how that Geek Chic going out of business has impacted their company or their business. So, what do you think? Would you like to hear something from them or maybe another gaming table company? Because right now I have quite a few interviews coming up. So for the next, I think at least 4 episodes, including this one. At least 3 episodes after this one, you're going to hear interviews, because at the time of this recording, let's see, I'm recording this Saturday morning, and so I have 4 interviews lined up in the next 3 days. I have 1 this evening, I have 2 tomorrow, and I have 1 Monday night. So so you're going to be hearing a lot of interviews and guests come on the show for the next few episodes. So you won't have to listen to me the whole time, which is may be a good or bad thing. I don't know. But I do enjoy having people, guests come on the show and get their perspective on gaming and the projects that they're involved with. I spoke briefly last episode about talking to one of the managers of a local gaming store. So that's going to be coming up soon. And in fact, it so happens that this past week, Man vs. Meeple came out with a video where they actually mentioned this particular gaming store. So it's funny. It's like, a good week or so, even before that video went up, I had already talked to, his name is Albert, about interviewing him about just the ins and outs and ups and downs of creating and managing a local gaming store. And here, about a week and a half later, that video comes up and they're mentioned in the video. And so I contacted Albert. I was like, well, congratulations. I guess the timing is perfect. Maybe it's time to get that interview done real soon. So we're going to have that. In fact, that's one of the interviews I'm doing tomorrow. So that'll be most likely coming up at the next episode 8. And then Monday night, I'm going to be interviewing somebody at Plaid Hat Games about Ashes and the new decks and the new dice coming out. And hopefully, this is Ashes is one of those games that when I bought it, I had absolutely no idea what it was about. And I didn't care because the artwork on the box was just so exquisite and fantastic. A game of this that looks this good, I hope is a good game. So I got it. I got the game based solely on the artwork on the box. And I played the game. I loved the game. Plaid Hat Game has gone through numerous mergers and stuff like that pretty much put a lot of their projects on the back burner. And sadly, when you're talking about gamers, a lot of gamers are wanting like the newest thing. that whole cult of the new, or they want something. Once you played a game enough or got kind of sick of it, you're going to want something else, or that continued support. Sadly, I have seen, at least in my local area, that Ashes has really died off. And these gamers have gone on to other things, other games. I know it's been quite a while since I took Ashes off the shelf because very few people play it anymore. So I'm hoping that Plaid Hat Games can revitalize the Ashes with these 2 new decks that are coming out, and they're also introducing 2 new dice systems to the game. Yeah, so hopefully this means that new life is going to be breathed into Ashes Rise of the Phoenixborn game, because it really is a cool game. The artwork is great. And I'd really hate like heck to see that game kind of die off without any support. And I understand Isaac originally, I seem to remember him mentioning in the interview that he was planning on like 60 Phoenixborns being released as the end result. But thus far, we've only had the core box, 4 new decks, and now these 2, I guess you could call them deluxe expansions or deluxe decks, because it's introducing new dice as well. So anyway, I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the new things that are coming out. I'm excited about having Ashes being relevant at the gaming table again, because it's been too long for a game that good. Well, right now the whole convention scene is starting to ramp up. I know this weekend is Origins, and Gen Con is just around the corner, and Dice Tower Cruise and stuff like that, and BGG Con, and we even had I'd say about 2 or so weeks ago, we had our own called Con Carolinas. Funny enough. But the guys who put on a local con here twice a year called Mace, they had a presence there at Con Carolinas. So they had quite a bit of gaming demos and gaming sessions there at the con. So what have we been playing this week? Well, this past week I got a game off the shelf that I haven't really got to play. I have numerous games on my shelf that I haven't played yet, but I bought them a while back because I knew I would enjoy it. Thanks to people like Rodney Smith and his Watch It Played videos, and really anytime that's like a go-to source for me. Anytime I see a game or a game is announced that looks interesting, the first thing I look at is, okay, has Rodney done a Watch It Played video for it? And I watch that, and just by the way the gameplay is and the rules and stuff like that, is a big factor on determining whether I actually pull the trigger and purchase that game. So one game that I did purchase and finally got off the shelf was Mystic Vale. Now, apart from Ashes, this is one of these games that intrigued me just based on the art. The artwork is beautiful. And it's a cool new dynamic of card crafting. So it's not like deck building, but you're actually building or assembling and building and enhancing the cards as you play. And it's by AEG. So I got I downloaded the solo variant off of BGG and played a few games of that, and that is just really cool. The subject matter is not something that I really am drawn to. The whole thing of growing and harvesting and nature and stuff like that. I'm more of a combat person. You know, I like to roll the dice and kill things. But this one is unique, and it's interesting enough that I enjoyed a lot. One of the rules that is commonly overlooked or forgotten about is the whole aspect of spoiling your field. You have your cards as you're drawing from the top of your draw deck and placing the card in your field. Once you turn over the top card on your deck, once you get that third decay symbol, it's that red symbol with the image of the dead tree in it. You stop there. Once you get your third one, you stop right there. You keep that card on top of your draw deck. It is not part of your field. And that's something that I know when learning the game, I kept forgetting about. I kept wanting to put that third decay symbol into my field. And I kept having to remind myself, no, you keep that card on your draw deck. So in a sense, that is your first card for your next turn. So the only time that third decay symbol gets put in your field is if you decide to push. And at that point, if you get a fourth decay symbol, then your whole field is what they call spoiled, and you have to discard all your field cards. But that card that you drew or overturned from the top of your deck that had that fourth decay symbol, that stays on your deck. That does not get trashed away or discarded along with your field cards. So that's one dynamic that it took quite a few mistakes to just really grind that into my head. It's like, okay, no. Once you overturn that top card from your deck, that stays there until you decide to push, or it doesn't have a decay symbol, and then you could put it into your field. And the cards that's in your field is what you use for as far as your resources or your mana or money or banks, so to speak, as far as determining what you're able to afford and buying other advancement cards and Vale cards. So once I got that drilled in my head, it was real easy peasy. It's a fun game to play, even though there's not much player interaction as a result. I mean, there's no take that type of thing. There's no player-to-player combat, which may turn off some people in that aspect of some games. This game doesn't have much interaction between the players. It's basically a race against time in a sense that once all the points that has been put aside in the bank, so to speak, based on the number of players, once that pool is gone, the game's over. So basically, that's the only player-to-player competition, is being the first person to get that last piece of reward points. And then at that point, then not only do you count up your award points, but you also count up any points that you get in addition to that based on the gray icons. So yeah, if you haven't checked it out already, check out Mystic Vale by AEG. And I understand they're going to be releasing some other games using that same card crafting mechanic. This episode, we're talking to Nebulous Games, who has a game on Kickstarter right now called Blueshift, the game of galactic conquest. So let's get right to it, shall we? Welcome back to the Mega Meeple, and we have right now a person that has a Kickstarter game right now. And full disclosure, I have not played this game, but I am a backer for it. So rather than hearing me drone on and on about a game that I haven't played yet, I just have the creator on right now, and he could tell us all about it. And we have Ben Stenquist of Nebulous Games. Hi, Ben. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good. So
thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I think this hookup was a bit unique because I'm usually sending out inquiries about, could you please be on my show, that type of thing. But but I had seen your game, I backed it, and I usually get like this automated answer saying you are a backer number such and such, and thank you and stuff like that. But with Blueshift, it was a bit unique because I think you emailed me directly and said, thank you for backing the game, and
it looks like you have a lot of experience with Kickstarter, so if you have any pointers, let me know. And I was like, oh wow, okay. So I replied and told you what I do and stuff like that, and you had offered to come on the show. And I was like, oh, well, as a matter of fact, I am looking for guests to come on the show. So thank you so much for coming on. Now, for those people out there that have not seen the game yet or are not aware of it on Kickstarter, I want to just go back on and get some backstory about where you came from, what your experience in board games is. And if you could take us back to when Nebulous Games was basically nothing more than a scribble on a barroom napkin, just tell us how it came to be and how it's going so far.
Yeah, of course. So maybe where I'll start is just a little bit about how I got started with board games and board game design, and then I'll go into Blueshift a little bit. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, great. So ever since I can remember, I've just loved developing and making board games. I know my dad has told me that I loved playing like Stratego when I was around 6 years old. And he started teaching me Risk a little bit after that. So have always loved board games. And I think you could always find me at home, writing down, making up all sorts of different little games. But a lot of them didn't really work. I was too young to figure out how things work, to make sure the mechanics were balanced and that kind of thing. If you fast forward quite a few years, I was actually playing this game. It's called Pirates of the Caribbean. It's a little pocket model game, and I was really enjoying it. And I thought, oh, maybe I should make a space version of this game. That'd be kind of cool. And this was like about 7 years ago, I'd say. And so I set out on this adventure to try and make a different version, a space-themed version of this game. And this led me on the path to what eventually became Blueshift. Now, for those of you who have read the manual or heard about Blueshift, it's nothing like the original game that I set out to make. But it was kind of the original inspiration for me. And so it really started as a hobby where I was making Blueshift and just playing with friends and family and stuff like that, and getting a lot of really good feedback back about it. One thing that's interesting is it actually started out on sticky notes. That's what the game was. There were different planets on different sticky notes, and I was actually just drawing little ships on sticky notes and cutting out the pieces as well. But even at that point, there was a friend of mine. I played it with his younger cousin, and he just loved it. He has to keep playing it and playing it. So I'm like, oh, this is great. People really like this game. I should keep going.
Got something there.
Yeah. So I had something to work with. And eventually, as you'll see in the Kickstarter page, it moved to being hexagon-based. It makes it a lot more sense than being on a grid with sticky notes. And so then I kind of iterated over time, over the last 6 or 7 years, play testing it, improving on the different species in the game. And eventually, I started doing my own artwork for the game, actually. That was in one of my earlier prototypes. I did my own artwork, learned Illustrator, and then had a couple of prototypes manufactured. And I kind of just left it alone for a few years, really, because it was just a hobby. It was just a thing I liked doing for fun. And then just about a year ago, I decided I actually wanted to try and launch it on Kickstarter. So I found a graphic designer and an illustrator and worked really hard with them and developed Blueshift as it is now. So that's kind of a brief background about where it came from.
That's neat. If anything, that's just a story of a fan that made it. That's doing. You enjoyed board games all your life, and it's like, okay, let's take this to the next level. Now,
exactly.
Now, Blueshift is described as a 4X game, which basically is exploration, expansion, exploitation, and extermination. So, you say you worked on this for a number of years. How many versions of the game do you think you went through before you came up with the final model?
Oh, man, it's hard to say, because what I would do after every playtest, I would ask all the players, what is one thing you would like, what was one thing you would change, and what is one thing you really enjoyed. And so I was constantly iterating with small iterations, but I guess as far as major versions, I probably had maybe 4 or 5 versions that had major overhauls as part of it. but of course, just constantly small iterations on the mechanics as well.
Okay. Well, tell us about how the game works. It's a 2 to 6 player game, right? And,
that is correct.
So tell us how, just briefly, how it all works and what mechanics are involved.
Yeah, of course. So the way the game starts is you set up the board with all the different hexagons laid out and their scenarios in the manual that you can use. And you start with one planet you control and there's 2 ships. And everything else on the board is unexplored. So it's flipped over. You don't know it's there. All you know is that some of the sectors, you know there will be a planet there. But that's about it. That's all you have to go off of. And so you start out, and that's why the game has such a quick setup, is because all you need to do is set up those 2 planets and everything else is just flipped upside down. And then as you go through the turns, you explore these different sectors and find what's underneath them, whether it's different planets or different events you might run across. And as you take over these planets, it helps boost up your income. So each turn you start getting more and more income from taking over planets and also increasing the stats of the planets you already have. So you start to build up this economy, and you can start to purchase more ships and bigger ships, of course, to help increase the strength of your armada. And eventually, you'll come into conflict with other players on the board. And that's where I think it's a lot of fun. A lot of players really love getting in combat with each other and being tactful about where should I engage in combat. And I should mention, the point of the game is to get up to 16 victory points. And the way that works is you get 3 victory points for controlling the planet and 1 victory point for having a trade alliance with the planet. So you're just trying to expand your influence and your empire over the board. So the game ends as soon as you have to get to 16 victory points and then hold that for an entire round. So your opponents have a chance to try and stop you after you reach that. So that's a little bit of background about the mechanics and how it works.
Sort of like the King of the Mountain type of thing. You're going to survive one full round before you can release that. Left on your laurels there. Now, I mean, what? And you have 6 different factions or 6 different groups that you could play as.
Yeah. So in the game we call them species. Did you want me to go a little bit into them?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So I'll just give you a little bit of the flavor for them. So, in no particular order. The first one, they're the Tavare. So they're the merchant race. They are good at logistics, getting around the board and creating new spaceports, as well as at creating trade alliances. They're one of my favorite species, actually. The second one is the Marauker. So they're the warrior race. They're kind of reptilian in nature, and they get bonuses in combat. So a lot of times players will be a little bit scared of them, engaging them in combat, but their economy isn't quite as strong on their base planet to kind of balance that out. The third one is the hive mind. They are more like insects in nature, and the benefits that they have is throughout the game, certain planets can rebel, and this is caused by several different factors, but the hive mind, their planets never rebel, so you never have to worry about that. And the other benefit is sometimes you'll find planets that are uninhabited, and you have to build a colony ship and take it across the board to inhabit that planet. But these guys, they can, the hive mind, they can inhabit a planet even with their regular ships, kind of colonize that planet. The fourth one is the Alpha Primaris Coalition. And they're basically like the humans, kind of like this rough network of human planets trying to regain their former glory. And they have one of my favorite mechanisms where it's called a spy network, where if enemy ships move into one of your sectors, you have an opportunity to move ships in one of your neighboring sectors to help defend. So it really is more like defensive and zone control as far as the humans go. The fifth one, they are the androids. So they are excellent at building up their economy, kind of like, that machine-like nature to them, as well as they're good at invading planets. And the last one is the Zonio. They are the advanced technology race. The two benefits that they have is they have a larger hand size. I guess that's one thing I didn't mention earlier, is that each turn you play an action card that, can boost your economy or give you some kind of special bonus. And the Zarnil, they have a larger hand size of those. And they also have cloaking technology, which makes it a lot easier to flee from combat. And so they can kind of pick and choose where they're going to fight and be more tactful that way. So yeah, those are the different factions, the 6 different factions.
Wow, that as you're going over this, I'm just thinking of some ideas of would there be room to play like not only combat against other factions, but also align yourself and have like a truce with one faction. It's like, okay, you and I join forces and we'll go after this third faction. Or if you have like a group or one faction that's like a double agent type of thing.
So yeah, that's a really cool idea. So in Blueshift, I didn't create any official mechanics for alliances, because one of the things I love in games like this is kind of the table talk and the banter and allowing the flexibility to, maybe backstab somebody or randomly form a truce or an alliance. So I didn't create any actual mechanics, but I always love in the games watching how the different players interact and try and, make truces and these kind of things. So you're absolutely right that happens in every game.
How difficult was it to I guess, balance all 6 of these and not have one just be so dominant or overpowered, or one be so weak that their abilities were not so much cohesive, but that it's a good balance of power.
Yeah, that was actually quite difficult. I remember in the original iterations, actually the Zarnil, their cloaking technology turned out to be super, super rigged, and it took me a few games to realize that and to tone it down a little bit. And so that's been one of the benefits of having this start out as a hobby, where I built the game over like 6 years, is that I played this game a lot of times with a lot of players, a lot of different playing styles. And so, yeah, it was difficult. It took a lot of time, but I think we've got it to a really good point right now where whenever I play, it's kind of a toss-up as far as which species is going to win, because they're all good. They all can win.
Well, it's certainly looks like you have a good game there. I got to tell you, one of the things that really sparked my interest is, number one, just that it's a sci-fi, and I'm big for sci-fi. I don't have many 4X's games, but I'm real big on sci-fi. But another thing that really sparked my interest was the artwork. I believe it was done by Kyle Merriman. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
When I was looking at the ships, just the color scheme and the vivid illustrations of the ship, I don't know how old you are, if you're old enough to remember back in the 80s. When I looked at the artwork of the ships, I was immediately reminded of a magazine and comics called Heavy Metal. They even made a movie out of it based on the comics. And I looked at the ships, I was immediately brought back to sneaking Heavy Metal comics in my room and stuff like that, and hope my mom didn't see them, because the graphics was mature graphics and storyline and stuff like that. But I was immediately taken back to those days. I was like, I could really get into this game. So that's my compliments to the artist too as well.
Yeah, Kyle, he did a great job. I kind of just gave him a general direction, and he just ran with it. And I think the thing that drew me to Kyle to begin with, like you mentioned, is the vividness of the colors and the imagination that he's using. I couldn't agree with you more on that.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you wanted to tell us about the game?
No, I think we're excited, obviously, to have it on Kickstarter. We'd love to have your support. You can just search for Blueshift on Kickstarter. And no, I think that's it. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. And, of course, I'll have the links to that site on the show notes for this episode. It's episode 7. And just by way of dating the episode, just in case someone is listening to this like months and years down the road, we're recording this on June 17th, 2017. And the Kickstarter will be going until July 7th. And just looking at the numbers, I think you just go from the assumption that I think this thing is good of fun, because you're about a little less than halfway through the time, and you've already raised about half the amount. So if that continues the trend, you're right on time on getting this thing successfully out there.
Yep, we're definitely excited to get this into everybody's hands. So we're looking forward to having it be funded.
And I'm looking forward to playing it. Thank you so much, Ben. That's Ben Stenquist from Nebulous Games. Blueshift, the game of galactic conquest with 2 or 6 players on Kickstarter now. Check it out.
And again, I'd just like to thank Ben from Nebulous Games to agree to come on our show and talk about his game. Thank you so much for listening to the Mega Meeple. Now, if you have any ideas of topics you'd like to see covered, or any games that you'd like to see reviewed, or people that you would like to see interviewed, please let me know. All the social media links are on our webpage. Also, if you are a designer or creator of board games and you would like to be a guest on the show, either you have a Kickstarter game, or you just recently successfully funded a Kickstarter, or you have a brand new game that you'd like to get the word out on, please contact me through the website. Just go to the website, themegameeple.com. Go to the Contact Us page and just fill out the appropriate fields, and that'll shoot me an email immediately, and we'd love to have you on the show. So that's it for this episode. So until next week, this is Thom saying, game